second and let them know, hey.
Okay.
Alrighty. Okay, cool. So the live stream should be good to go. And then we can get started whenever you're ready.
All right. Give me just a sec. Just wanted to check on that.
And then I'll keep track of the Facebook.
All right. All right. Well, we've already introduced ourselves, but yeah, I'm Lauren. We have Eric here, who is also awesome. Today we're teaching a class on Twine, which is a really great tool for creating your own interactive games. It's a text game based system, so this isn't like a kind of Call of Duty game creation system. It's more like kind of a create your own adventure sort of storytelling system. There are a lot of really well-known games that have been created through Twine. There's stuff like Depression Quest. I know that one got a lot of attention. With Those We Love Alive, that sort of thing. A lot of more kind of story-based creations. So it's a really cool way to kind of get into coding, get into gaming, and learn more about this this way to tell whatever story you want to tell. So yeah, I think we're pretty much ready to get started. Let me go ahead and get on the right screen here. All right. Awesome. Alrighty, can you see the screen here? Okay, very cool. All right, so the first page that we're going to go to is twinery.org. This is the main website for Twine. You can see there's a few different details here, some different work samples and screenshots. The main thing that we are going to look at here is this section. You can use Twine either as a independent software, you can download it and use it on your computer, or you can use it in your browser, which is, oh, there we go, thank you. So what we're gonna do today is use it in the browser. Just know that you can download it easily. This is an open source software, so it's totally free. You can do whatever you want with the source code, and it's a really great way to get started with coding. But we're gonna use it online. You can also create an account, but feel free to follow along here. So here we have, normally when you get into this, you will have a blank screen. I just have a few examples here because I've been working with Twine, but you'll have a blank screen here if you haven't created any stories yet. You can kind of see the settings along the side here. You can use archive to save all of your stories to a file. So if you need to move your stories from one computer to another, you can do it that way. You can import stories from a file so that you won't have to start from scratch if you have a file that you've been working on for a while. You can change the day and night settings here. I'm just going to stick with day. But yeah, mostly what we're going to be doing today is getting started with creating a pretty simple game, and we'll learn how to add a few different features to it, including images, variables, and we'll talk about some of those different things as we go along. Any particular questions so far? Okay, awesome. All right. So we'll go ahead and start a new story here. And feel free to give it whatever name you want. I'm just going to call this Twine class story. So you can see you get this, this whole giant grid here to work with. And in the middle, you have your first untitled passage. Each passage in Twine is basically like a page in a choose your own adventure novel. It's going to contain all of the information that's displayed on the page, and it's also going to contain the code that'll tell the game when to go to certain pages. It'll tell it if you have certain items within the game, if there are certain conditions that are met or not met. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But for now, what we're going to do is go ahead and double click here to open up our passage. So Twine is a coding program. It's a very simple kind of coding program, but it does involve code. So we're going to talk about kind of the simplest way to do it. So it already has some of these things set up. You can give your passage a title if you want. I'm going to give it a very simple title to start with. Passage 1. And then you can click down here. You can also add tags to your passages to more easily find them. And then you can edit the text here. We'll say, this is the first passage. And exit. You can see that there's a change that's been made. And there you go. This is our whole game. So you can see there are a bunch of options down here: test, play, add passage. What we're going to do is play, just so we can kind of see the results of what we've created so far. And it's not very exciting because all we've done is type one line. But we do have our passage here. Now, our goal here is to make a game that's actually interactive. So let's back out of this. I'm just going to close this tab and go back to our main screen here. All right. So let's make another passage. Doesn't have to necessarily be exciting, but we'll do passage number 2. And here we can no, this also isn't very exciting. We'll get to the exciting stuff in a minute. Oh, so as you can see, you can also drag these around to organize them a little bit better. Just depends on how you want to do it. So now we have 2 passages, but if we hit play here, you can see that we're still only seeing that first screen. So the second passage exists within the game, but there's no way to actually get to it right now. So we need to actually put in a little bit of code so that we can connect these 2 passages and come back to what we were working on before. All right, so I'm going to reopen this first passage, and the code here is very simple. This is kind of the simplest function that's included in Twine, is moving between passages. So what we're going to do, start a new line here, and we're going to type double square brackets, and within those we're going to type, and it'll auto fill in the names of the passages that we already have, because this is one of the main functions of Twine. So I'm just going to click on passage 2 here, and it'll actually finish the function for us. So this double brackets on each side will tell the game to take you to whatever passage is contained within those brackets. So now we can close this out. We can hit play. And now you can see we have a link. Oh, and I did a little error there, but this is the second passage. So now our game is interactive on a very basic level, but now it's actually a game. So we're basically 90% of the way there. Oh, so we'll go ahead and quit back out of this. But this is the kind of simplest means by which to tell a story, is having people, click to move on. And since you have the ability to attach passages together, you can actually create choices within passages. So there's a couple ways to create passages. Instead of creating the passage first and then attaching it, we can actually just make one up here. it out, and it'll automatically create this next passage for us. It won't have anything contained in it, but if we hit play here, it'll give us another choice to go for within that first passage. I'm saying passage a lot. Are you guys following along okay so far? Not super complicated, I know. But yeah, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to let me know. So I'm actually gonna go into a game that I've already created as kind of an example. So from this Twine class, I'm gonna go back to the home page, and I think it's this one right here. Yep. So this is going to be kind of what we are going for today. It's, again, kind of has this very simple setup. I began my journey at the first passage. So you can see already that we're including page titles that aren't the same as the choices there. So I'm not explaining that very well. We'll go back into the code here and I'll show you what I mean. So this passage here, you can see that the choice has text here. It has this line here and then passage 3. So it'll be displaying the text in front of the actual name of the passage. So that's one way to kind of construct your story in a way that might look more interesting and still stay organized with like passage numbers instead of having to have this whole mess of text there. Let's see. So I think next we can go into variables. That might be kind of a good thing to talk about. Oh no, images. Let's talk about images next. So images are another thing you can include within your Twine game. As you can see, it's a pretty basic code set here. But if we play through to the point where we have the image, you can see that it displays this little image here. It's not much, but it adds another aspect to the game that can make it more visually compelling. So in order to add an image, this is actually included within the handout that I sent you guys, but it's a pretty simple code. So all you need to do, you can find pretty much any image you want to include online.
I'll go ahead and put some links to some free websites that have stock images that you can use for free. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in the chat box on Facebook as well as Zoom. So.
Sounds good. All right. So I'm going to find a picture of like a path to start off our adventure here. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. Here's a picture. Oop. All right. So I'm going to copy the link to this image up here in the URL. All right. What we want to do here is insert a little bit of code. So the code for an image is fairly simple, but I put it in the quick reference because it's a little bit hard to remember off the top of your head. You want to start off with a caret. Do This just stands for image source. We're going to put a quote. We are going to paste the URL in here. I see chat. Great. Okay. All right. And that's pretty much it. There are other things that you can do. You do have to make sure that you close it off with the ending caret there. You can also decide on a width and a height for the picture. It will distort the image, so it'll squish it or stretch it out if you change the ratio of width to height. But we can do that anyway. So if we do width equals, and then you want to do quotes for this as well. Oops, that link is broken. Great. Let me go ahead and fix that. Nope, still broken. This is a really good game, guys. Let's figure out what I did wrong. Oh, I forgot the quote. There we go. Okay, so that teaches you the important lesson that you actually need to look at your code before you you post it. Otherwise, you get to look really cool in front of your class. All right. So posting images from the internet. If you're just making a story for personal use, feel free to pull images from wherever you want. Eric's link is really helpful for if you want to find free images to use for a game that you're actually planning on posting online or having available to a wider audience. So it is very helpful to have those available. All right. So I think we'll talk about variables next. A variable is a pretty important concept in coding. Basically, find here. I think the most basic definition is a variable is a container for a value that can change. So a variable is something, it can be a number. So like in a video game, you might have a variable like strength or speed or something like that. And that value can change over time. It can have an effect on the game. It could also be a variable like, does your character have a magic sword or do they not? And a variable like that is a yes/no variable. It's binary, so it can only be one or the other. So there are a few different kinds of variables there. We'll talk about both of them. The one that is in our game here has to do with having a sword. So you can see in the code here, I've created a variable called hasSword. And since this is one of those binary variables, it can either be true or false. I've set that here. So depending on what you do in this situation, it'll either set the variable hasSword to true or false. And then you can call on that variable later. So in this example, if we start playing here, oh, brought that up. We set the value to true. And now that we have the sword, we can fight the dragon. If we don't have the sword, if we play from here and you fight the dragon, you do not win. So basically, a variable is something that you can set at any point in the story. You can change it depending on what happens in a given passage, and then you can call on that variable at different points in the story as well. So it's another pretty simple thing that you can set. And the code for a variable, like I showed you, we'll go ahead and set one here. So the code for a variable goes in parentheses. It's pretty simple. We just do set, colon, and then you need to put a $sign, and then we'll determine a name for our variable. So I'll just set a simple one here, like strength. And then we're going to decide what this variable is called, or what the value of this variable is. I'm going to set that variable to 0 to start with, and parentheses. And now we have a variable called strength. It doesn't mean anything at this point. It just exists. So we could call on that at a future time if we wanted to give the character a test of strength. And that's what we're doing with the dragon and the sword passage as well, is asking the game basically, is the variable true or false? If the variable is true, you can take a certain action, and if it's false, you can take a different one. Let me see. So within the passage here, you can see it's calling on that has sword variable, and we're doing an if else statement, which is also a very common thing in coding. So it's saying if this variable is true, show this passage right here. And if the condition here is not met, then it shows this passage here. So with a binary variable, it's a very simple function to make happen. But it's fairly simple with numbers as well. So let me pull this up here. So basically, I'm hoping that we can use these sort of basics to create a game together. And so if you want to, I'm not sure where you're at in terms of following along with this, if you're just wanting to watch, but you're welcome to start working on your own game. I can continue going over variables. I can talk about how the number variables work. I can go into some of the other information about passages if you'd like. Whatever would be most helpful to you, I can go over here.
We could also take a few minutes to kind of look at some other examples of maybe some of the ones that have been done that are, done well, or some that have maybe reached some acclaim or something like that. Might be good to see the possibilities.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Sure, we can look at, Depression Quest was kind of the main one that I mentioned. Not sure if there's any other. Let's do like, or I can just look for Depression Quest. I don't think it's too intense at the beginning, but we can just look at kind of the stuff that you can do with it. So this all takes place within Twine as well. There are a lot of options here. It has moving pictures. It has different choices. that you can click on here. Different information. I don't want to go too deep into the game because it's pretty involved and very plot heavy. But basically it takes you through a huge number of options. Yeah, sure. Totally fine. Let's see if I can find any other good ones. And there's a lot of stuff that you can create that isn't covered kind of in the basics. One of the ones that I worked on here, it's very simple, but you have different like classes here that have different skills. You can check your inventory. It'll tell you what's in there. You can add things to the inventory. So it's a kind of very, very basic means of coding that you can do a lot with. Let me see. I'm going to stop screen sharing just for a second so I can look for some good examples. All right, here I found a good one. So I think this is a pretty good example of a Twine project that has a lot of different features to it. We have a really cool image here. We have good description. We have a lot of kind of customization in the interface. You can see the different stats on the side here. So this is like a little cave exploration game. You can see our little character here. So it has the first choice here. Lets you like highlight each choice. And then we have a, different picture here. We can choose which way to go. All right, and I just made a bad decision, and you can see that the amount of ore I had has been reduced. So there's a ton of different things that you can do with this sort of system. Are you building a game with us too, Eric, or are you just observing?
Yeah, I'm building something. So I can't promise how good it is, but.
Oh yeah, I mean, mine's very exciting here. All right, so I'm gonna start building. I might be a little bit quiet. I'm not good at multitasking.
Yeah, and that'll work out. Just kind of going over some more of those variables and showing exactly how, once you get pretty good at these different codes and putting the coding in there, you're basically telling your own adventure story. So I think kind of always showing examples is one of the best ways that people learn.
Yeah, sure.
Lauren, we might also want to explain where they can go for more resources, like how to get into the cookbook with examples.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We go back to twinery.org. We have a few different resources on the side. There's a really awesome forum here with a ton of really helpful information. The Discord is always a good resource. If you're not familiar with Discord, it's a chat program that lets you create different servers where you can talk to people about various topics. And as far as I've experienced, people are really nice on the Twine Discord, very helpful. But the cookbook is right here, and this is my favorite resource. They have a ton of information here. So start off on the main page. They have the introduction. It talks about basically how to use this resource. But then there are also common terms like variables. So if you want to learn more about variables here, it'll show you the information. Kind of one of the interesting thing about Twine is that it's able to interpret multiple different coding languages. So I think Harlow is the default here. So like we used before, it has the cash $sign followed by the variable name to set a variable. And then we have a different coding language chapbook that has different ways of setting those variables. So if you're interested in looking at the different functionalities that these coding languages offer, the cookbook is a great way to start out with that. It also talks about stuff like just more information about the passages, linking the passages together, talks about CSS, which is, if you've ever done any kind of website coding, CSS is basically what's used to make websites look good. It has JavaScript integration, HTML, there's all kinds of stuff involved here. So using all of these resources to their fullest extent, the cookbook is definitely a great way to get started with that. There's also a few resources I included on the handout, so there are links to those if you open it as a PDF. There's like this inventory tutorial, which I found really helpful, and they talk a lot about, they're really good at talking about how it's actually constructed. Instead of just telling you, oh, well, type in this, it actually takes you through the whole process, you know, piece by piece, and it really explains how the code works. We also have a total beginner's guide to Twine, which is extremely helpful. It has video guides, passages and links. It has somebody talking who is much more articulate than me, so I would definitely recommend this if you get a chance. Creating links, changing your settings. So this is where you can do stuff like decide what color your game is going to be, what font it's going to use, in addition to stuff like settings for the pictures and the decoration, all that sort of thing. So yeah, these are great resources. Depending on what kind of game you want to make, I think I included some information on creating like RPGs, which involve a lot of different stats like strength and speed, but there are all kinds of other games that you can create as well. And there are hundreds of online tutorials on how to get started with creating those kind of games. So if you want to search, if you want some help looking for those resources, I'm always available. And yeah, there's a lot out there.
So what does yours look like right now, Lauren?
So I was actually going to say right now I am I'm actually showing how to change a variable within a passage. So what I'm doing now is I'm having the character, if you choose this path, your character is going to do some weightlifting and get swole. So I want to make sure that their strength goes up accordingly. So for that, we're going to do we're going to use the set command again, but we don't want to just set the strength to a different number, because what if the character does some weightlifting, but then later on they, you know, pick up a big rock or something like that and their strength increases again. We don't want to just set it to a number, because they could be making different choices in those different parts that would change it again. So what we want to do is set the strength, but we're going to set the strength to it, and that just calls back on what the variable already is. And then we're going to do it plus 5, we'll say. And 5 is just it's arbitrary. You could set it to whatever number you want, but we're going to do plus 5. So now we're setting the variable. So if our strength was already 10, then this would set it to 15. Since it's 0, it's going to be set to 5. But that makes the change relative instead of absolute, which is what you want generally when you're making a game. All right. want cooked chicken. Yeah, there we go. There's a good one. I hate to say it because by no means am I a professional game designer, but as far as I've experienced, this is mostly what making games is like, sitting in silence and looking for pictures of chickens. All right, so now we're coming to a passage where we can make stuff happen. So we're gonna fight a bear. And I've decided now that strength is gonna be kind of the deciding factor in this fight. It doesn't really matter how fast you are when you're fighting a bear. I don't know anything about fighting bears. I've decided that being strong is the important part. So what we wanna do here is this passage. So we're going to use one of those if-else statements, and we're going to call on the strength variable since that's what matters here. We're going to go ahead and this statement is made in parentheses. So we're going to go with if strength is, and since we've given ourselves 5 strength, I'm going to go ahead and say if it's greater than 4, close parentheses. Now to decide what text is shown, if we meet this condition, we want to do a square bracket, just a single square bracket this time. And we're going to type in whatever the results are of us winning this bear fight. Let's see. There we go. And now we have to show what happens if we do not meet this condition. So if we chose to run around instead of doing our weightlifting, we are going to have a different result. So if this condition is not met, bears can climb, so this might not work, but we're going to say that's what happens. Now I'm just going to copy this over for ease of use to the foot race, because it's going to have a similar setup, but instead of strength, we're going to do speed. Foot race, I don't know who we're running against, but we're going to run super fast. All right. So now we kind of have a game. Let's test it out. Eric, are you still there? That's fine. We'll test our game out. It's gonna be awesome. I forgot to change this first passage. That's fine. This is the first passage. I'm going to passage 2. All right. Now, which path should I take? I've kind of spoiled this game for myself a little bit. I'm going to do with some weightlifting. I think I'm going to run a foot race and see how this turns out. God dang. So this means our game is working correctly so far because I chose to do the weightlifting. I wasn't fast enough to win the race. So let's actually go back and let's try wrestling a bear instead. Yes. Okay. So this isn't the most exciting game ever, but you can kind of see how the variables work. This has choices, it has outcomes based on those choices, and it has stats that can be used to accomplish different tasks. So we have a game here. How's everyone else's game going? And if you're not ready to share yet, that's totally fine. You can keep working on it, and I'll find some other stuff to add to this game. Accidentally created some extra passages here, so I'm just going to get rid of these. Oops, deleted the wrong one.
Excuse me, the library does close at 3. That's in 5 minutes. Please bring your items to the front for checkout. Thank you.
It's fine. I'll just redo it. now we're back to where I was before I accidentally deleted stuff. So I think I am gonna do a little extra work here and add an inventory because it's kind of a fun thing to add. Might have to remind myself how to do this, but basically when you're creating an inventory, you add what's called an array, and an array is basically a list of things. It can contain whatever items you want it to contain. In this case, it's going to contain a bunch of words that refer to items within the story. So what I'm going to do is back out of this because I need to refer to one of my other examples here. I'm actually going to just copy these over, I think, and then I'll talk a little bit more about how they work, if I can copy them. We'll see how it goes. Nope, that did not work. That's fine. So we'll just talk about it in here. That's fine. So this is a footer. This is where our option to access the inventory is going to be available. So it'll show up at the bottom of the screen on every passage except for the inventory itself. So that's basically what it's saying here. It's saying if the passage is the inventory passage, then don't make this footer show up. Or if the passage has a tag here that says do not show inventory, also don't show the footer. Otherwise, it gives you this option to check the inventory. So this is just a kind of simple little function to make it look a little bit better, to make it just cleaner and not have that option hanging around when you're already in the inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this code. We'll add our passage in here. We'll add the footer tag. And we'll add in our code. But for now, it's not going to do too much, but it does add that the inventory option here. And you might have noticed here that the footer and the inventory aren't technically connected to the rest of the story because you access it through the footer, which isn't attached to a particular passage, if that makes any sense. So what we're going to do is look at the inventory code here. So what it's saying here, the inventory length basically refers to the number of things that are in the inventory, so the number of items in there. So this first line is saying if there is more than 0 things in the inventory, it's going to show your inventory contains these various items. This code here just prints it in a way that is you're visually able to parse. So it's going to have each individual item listed with a comma and a space between them just to make it a little bit easier to read. Otherwise, if there are 0 items in your inventory, it's just going to say your inventory is empty. And then it's going to have a link that will take you back to whatever page you were on previously. So it's a little bit more complicated than what we've been working on, but I'm just going to add it since that's where we are right now. All right, let's head back to our other game. Alrighty. So now we have our inventory set up. I think if we play, it should show up here. Yeah, okay. So it's not quite working right now because we don't have our inventory variable set up. So we're going to do that now as well. Let me check and make sure I'm not missing anything. All right, so this is the code we want right here. And I'm going to add this to the beginning of our new game. And then we'll talk about what it means. So this is creating the inventory as something we can refer to, and it's setting it as an array, which is what this means. It's little a dot, a colon. So now hopefully it'll, yep, there we go. So now it should work since inventory actually exists in the game as a thing that you can do. So we won't be able to fill the inventory with anything yet because we haven't created any items within the game, but we can do that now as well. So I'm just copying it down to make it a little easier on myself. So we'll have a couple options here since this passage is meant to have you go pick up some stuff.
Are we all clear?
Yeah, I'm teaching class. I hope none of you would pick up a hairbrush that you saw on the ground in a park in real life. Or, I mean, I guess you can pick it up, but maybe not use it. All right, so that'll create some new passages for us. I'm gonna scoot these over a little bit. Oop. There we go. All right. So since we choose this option, add a little narration. And like you've probably seen, nothing in here is actually going to show up once we're playing the game. This is just code that's running in the background. So what we're going to do here is set the inventory. And this is adding things to the array. So we're setting it to what it was before plus whatever is in this new array that we're adding. So we don't actually need two items in here. We are just going to add a rubber ball. Alrighty. And we'll just copy this over for that other one and change it to airbrush. see how that worked. So let's check our inventory. Okay, our inventory is empty. So let's go pick up some stuff. Let's go pick up a dirty hairbrush. Check our inventory. Yay, we have a hairbrush. All right, so it seems to be working pretty well. We don't have anywhere interesting to go from here, but we have an item. We have a hairbrush. Yeah, so it's not too hard to add something like an inventory. Like I said, I included that tutorial, but let me drop that in the chat as well. Like I said, I really like this inventory or this particular tutorial because they do a really good job of explaining the reasoning behind it instead of just kind of telling you what code to write. Alrighty, what else can I add? How's everyone's game going? Maybe we'll add another passage here so you can pick up other stuff too. Maybe we'll let you go to the gym after this. Go pick up a rubber ball. Now go to the gym. Maybe I can add some functionality to this rubber ball. Or the hairbrush. Yeah. Let's do something with that hairbrush. And again, I might have to refer to my previous work here. Okay. So we want this code here because we're going to have to do another if-else statement. Gonna head back to the main screen. There we go. All right, so let's add an alternative to this bear fight because I think we should be able to use that hairbrush somehow. So we want, I think if our inventory contains I haven't finished that yet. One second. All right. Hopefully this will work. If not, we'll figure out why. we go. This is the good ending. Alrighty, let's give it a shot. I'm curious which one will take precedence. Let's go pick up some stuff first. We'll grab the hairbrush, go to the gym, pump some iron. Okay, so it's going to show both. Interesting. Let's see what else we can do here. Let's look it up now. Let's have a Google lesson. Looks like you can do an else if. So what I'm trying to look up here is a way, because it's showing if you're both strong and have the hairbrush, it's showing both of those results. I want to only have one or the other, so I want to kind of decide which one is going to take precedence over the other. So I'm going to say that if you're strong, that is the first thing that it should check. So it looks like that does work, but we'll see. So let's test that again and see how it goes. So go pick up some stuff, hairbrush, gym, weightlifting, there. Awesome, so that totally works. So yeah, and I talked very briefly about this, but so we have our if-else statement. It's saying if your strength is this high, it's going to show this statement. And then if you meet this condition, it doesn't keep going. It doesn't keep referring to it and showing other passages. So it should go down the list. If you meet this condition, it stops there. If you meet this condition, it'll stop here. Otherwise, it's going to show this passage right here at the end. I don't know if that makes any sense. And if there's any other code you want me to show, anything else you want me to put in the chat, just let me know. As you can probably tell, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I do enjoy doing it, and I've experimented a lot with some of these different things, so just let me know. Let's do something with a rubber ball too. I don't know how you're going to win a race with a rubber ball. Just bonk people on the head with it. Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't want to encourage throwing rubber balls at people. So let's do some weightlifting and then run the foot race. Heck yeah, it worked. The moral of the story is that picking stuff up in the park to win a foot race doesn't pay off. But I do have a rubber ball now. Oh, that's great. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that you're enjoying. Okay. Yes, that's a good idea. Is there anything else particular about Twine that you'd like that you think would be worth mentioning? Still going through the info provided in the links while putting what we have gone over into the game. I'm finding I'm enjoying the creation from scratch more than I anticipated. Yeah, I'm really glad that you're enjoying the creation of the game. I think it's really fun. It's kind of like a meditative process for me. It's just really fun to find solutions, to think of something that you want included in the game and then find a way to make that happen. What else is good to include? Let's see if I have anything interesting in here. Oh man, I know there are ways to create health bars and to randomize skills and that sort of thing. I don't know off the top of my head how to do that. What else is good that I actually know how to do? Back to the chicken page. Hang on. Let's take a look. Maybe I know I've done some randomized scores before. I think that's pretty fun. It's kind of cool to be able to have that in there. So why don't we look up how to randomize a score, and then we'll we'll integrate that with like the strength and the speed to give you a random value for your workout. That'll add a little bit more drama to the game. Okay, so this will give us a random value between 1 and 6. Interesting. I'll go ahead and try and integrate that. If it doesn't work, we'll figure out how to work it. So instead of 5, let's put in a random number here between 1 and 6. Or actually, maybe I'll do 1 and 10. And then we'll do the same for speed. We'll see if that works. If not, we'll try something else. So let's go ahead and play. So now it should, when we make this happen, all right, so I guess we were strong enough. That's not a very good way of telling if it's working or not. Let's make a way of checking our stats, and we'll actually check the, we'll make something similar to the inventory, except it will display what our stats look like instead. Copy this stuff down. Or I might just be able to include it within the footer we already have. I don't know. Let's see. So far, so good. Oop, it's kind of far down there, but we'll figure it out. All right. So what we're going to do is copy this. Actually, I'm just going to copy this part because the rest of it is going to be a little bit different. Okay. So I think I could be wrong here. we should just have to do that, and we'll see if that doesn't work. I kind of like it when things don't work, because then you get an opportunity to figure out why they're not working. All right, let's see how that goes. Awesome, that actually seemed like it worked really well. Let's now go to the gym, do some weightlifting. Now let's check our stats again. Yeah, awesome. Okay, let's try the whole thing again from the beginning and see if we get a different result or if it's just going to give us the same no matter what. Go to the gym. Let's run around in circles. Yeah, forgot about our chicken. I'll check our stats. Awesome. So we're getting a different result for that this time. So that means that our randomization is working. So I might not have actually talked about why I did the thing I did. So this is just the same as inventory. It is giving us that ability to return to the previous page that we were on. I just put strength here, speed here, and then print is going to insert whatever variable that you are putting after, in this case, strength and speed. So very simple, not a super complicated method here, but it's at least a way of checking what we've got going on. Yeah. What else can we add to this? We should add a loss condition and give it a bad ending. I just really think this isn't a good idea. There we go. All right, so we're gonna have our bad ending here. If you use your dirty hairbrush on your own hair. I think we'll give it a random chance of just making your hair really dirty, I guess. I want to give us a random chance of something bad happening. I'll probably have to set a variable here. Let's go ahead and create a variable. We'll call it hairbrush death. And we're going to set that to a random number. I can remember how to do that. Random colon between 0 and 100. Close parentheses. All right, so now we have a stat or a variable called hairbrush death. So I'm going to say if that variable equals let's say if it's less than 10, I don't want to die. That sounds a little dramatic. Maybe there's just bubblegum in there or something. That's good. I feel like that's appropriately bad. I know if I got bubblegum stuck in my hair, that would be an unfortunate day for me. If we say it's less than, it's gonna be binary, kind of. I mean, it's not binary. If it's gonna be one or the other here. Can do else. Go back to let's see. Let's go back to passage 2. right, we probably want to be starting to wrap up our games right about now. If you're interested in showing what you have so far, I can definitely take a look at it. You're welcome to email it to me and we can show it up on the screen. If you're not wanting to show it off, that's also totally fine. This is just all about having fun. So let me know what you're comfortable with, and if you'd like to share it, you're more than welcome to. All right. Let's see. And if anyone is interested in sharing your story, anyone who's following this class, not just in this Zoom call, but anyone who takes a look at this class later, if you want to share your awesome game that you've created with the library, and let us show it off on social media, show off the awesome creations you've made, we'd be happy to enter you in our summer reading program contest to win some really cool prizes, including a beautiful 3D printed dragon that we have around here somewhere. I'll see if I can find him in a minute. And I should also clarify the way that you actually have to save these stories. I'll explain that now. So if you do want to save your story and share it with us on social media, probably the easiest way to do that is to click on the home screen down here. You've seen me doing that a bunch of times. If you click right here on this little gear next to the story that you've created, click on Publish to File, and it immediately will download that for you as an HTML file, which is the format that Twine can read. We can then share it with other people and have it up on our website to show off all the hard work you've done. And again, totally optional. If you don't want to share it, if you just want to do this for yourself, that is also amazing. But it's definitely an option. So feel free to send us those. You can send it to us at library.technology@cityofloveland.org. Or yeah, but either way, we're happy to be able to share Twine with you, because I think this is a really cool resource. All right, let's see. And by using that export feature to save it as a file, you can also like email it to, friends or family. You can, save it on a USB drive and then keep working on it later. So if you accidentally deleted this file, or if you changed computers and didn't have access to the same file that you had before, you can then just import the file again and be able to work on it just like before. It should have all that information saved that you worked on, so it should show up exactly how it did before you lost the original file, which I've done many times. Get rid of some of these tabs. All right, let me see if I can find our dragon, and then I'll probably show off the game I've been working on. I think we might be out of time after that, but do definitely feel free, if you're interested, to share your game with us, and we would absolutely love to see what you've done. But yeah, let me go find the dragon. Yeah, and that's completely fine. There's so many resources out there. If you're not comfortable sharing it yet, if you want to work on it more, totally understandable. It took me a really long time to put together what I had that I was just copying and pasting from. But I want to show off our friend here. This is Nicey, the kindness dragon. And he is one of our amazing prizes for the summer reading program. Fully articulated 3D printed dragon. So yeah, that is pretty cool. This was actually created by Eric, who was helping me lead the class earlier. He is our resident 3D print expert. Or printed by Eric, sorry. All right. So I'll go ahead and go through my game again. I'm sure you guys have seen plenty of it, but we'll go through it just to show off some of the stuff that we've worked on. And again, if you have any questions, if you're watching this, you know, feel free to email us, to call into the library. I'm always happy to get questions about Twine. I can't guarantee I'll be able to answer them, but I like talking about it. So feel free to hit me up if you have any questions. So we'll go ahead and play this great game. I think we'll go pick up some stuff. I think we'll get the hairbrush because we haven't gotten the bad ending yet. Oh man. Well, let's check our inventory. Okay, we definitely have the hairbrush. Let's brush our hair. Okay, phew, I made it. All right, let's go ahead and let's do some weightlifting. Now let's check our stats. This is kind of cheating. I feel like I might have to work on this game a little bit later because I feel like you shouldn't be able to check your stats before you wrestle with a bear, because now I know I'm strong enough to beat the bear. Let's go run a foot race. Whoops. But we have our hairbrush. Oh no, we have 2 hairbrushes. Okay, that's another thing to work on. I don't know why we have 2 hairbrushes. It's very disturbing, actually. And our strength is really high. In conclusion, this is not a perfect game, but I had a lot of fun making it. And like I said, I think all of the things that go wrong are actually probably my favorite part. You know, figuring out ways to fix these weird issues that come up, figuring out where you went wrong, where you put in some kind of weird function that caused the strength to go up, that caused you to get all these extra hairbrushes. It'll be an interesting challenge for me to look at later. All right. Any more questions before we kind of wrap up? Either about summer reading program or Twine, anything else? Should I not be hugging Nicey, Eric?
The plastic is easily sanitizable, so Nicey does not spread germs.
Yes, I promise I'll clean him after this.
But yeah, we look forward to whoever wins that dragon. It was 98 hours in the making, so.
It's very cool. All right. I think we'll probably wrap up class now. Like I said, feel free to email library.technology@cityofloveland.org if you have any other questions. I'm always happy to talk about Twine, always happy to talk about any other technology, gaming, whatever related things. And yeah, anything else?
I think you covered a lot of content, Lauren. I really look forward to the different things that folks will be sending along. And your Twine tale was pretty invigorating too for the short amount of time you had to work on it. So yeah, thanks for sharing that for sure.
There was a lot of silence and me looking at pictures of chickens, but I hope people got something out of it. And yeah, let us know what you thought. Let us know what you've created. And yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Alrighty, I'm going to share this on our YouTube channel for those of you watching on Facebook Live. That way you're able to take a look at it later if you need to go back and review something, or if you want to watch it later. And as Lauren mentioned, if you share your creations with us, that automatically enters you into winning the 2 amazing technology prizes. So
awesome. All right, well, thank you so much.
Alrighty, yeah, thanks for participating, Winster. You have a great rest of your afternoon. We're going to go ahead and end the class, and any questions you have, send it to us at library.technology@cityofloveland.org. Alrighty.